Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars universe seems to be quite expansive, not just with their books, novels, comics, and video games, but also, let's not forget about the new Star Wars TV shows, the new Star Wars movies that are currently in development, as well as a handful of other Star Wars projects in the works. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way, guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing that a lot of fans have been very critical over is exactly how the Kenobi series came to an end, right? A lot of fans have been a little, skeptical about exactly how Kenobi ended, where we have, of course, Reva knowing about Luke, where we also have a moment where Vader actually loses in the actual fight against Obi-Wan Kenobi on the moon of Mustafar. So there's a lot of things that fans really had issues with in this series, and especially within the finale. To be honest with you guys, I thought that the final duel between both Vader and Kenobi was pretty solid, even though I do agree that Kenobi should have won, or should I say Vader should have won. That brings us to this actual discussion today that involves Ewan McGregor and exactly why he was actually very annoyed behind the scenes and actually fell into creative differences with Kathleen Kennedy. Now, we already know that Ewan McGregor was an executive producer, as well as others. I believe Deborah Chow was an executive producer as well, so there was a lot of back and forth on what people like Ewan McGregor and Deborah Chow wanted to do versus what they were forced to either do or not do in this series by Kathleen Kennedy. Now, Kathleen Kennedy, in case you guys did not know, is no longer involved on a creative scale for any new Star Wars TV shows except for Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte TV series, and that is it, period, the end. However, moving forward from all of this, with Ewan McGregor, who acted as an executive producer for the Kenobi series, he also had some creative control over some of the choices made for this series. Ewan McGregor is said to have been more involved with Episode 3, F5, and 6. However, the ending of Episode 6, both Kathleen Kennedy and Ewan McGregor ran into creative differences for the Kenobi ending. Now, it's described that Ewan McGregor was very annoyed with the fact over Kathleen Kennedy forcing himself to switch the fights for Kenobi and Vader back when they were actually writing the script. Ewan McGregor is said to have been very livid with Kathleen Kennedy over forcing the final fight between Kenobi and Vader to end with Kenobi letting him live. Now, to Ewan McGregor, this didn't make much sense, and originally McGregor wanted the opposite. McGregor was trying to push Kathleen Kennedy to make it that the final fight, Vader would win, and that the first fight, where Vader's mask gets damaged originally, would be considered the first fight. Now, it's described that there was a third fight, believe it or not, that was completely cut from the series that acted as the true first duel between Vader and Kenobi that was originally taking place on Nur within the Fortress Inquisitorius. In here is where Kenobi was originally going to beat Vader hands down in that scene, where he was set to also destroy his mask in that scene as well, as shown in the final cut of the actual series that happens at the end instead. As reshoots came along and production changed, many things shifted, and the final fight ended up being Kenobi actually being victorious. Now, Ewan McGregor never liked the idea of the end of the series leaving off with Kenobi just letting Vader live. To this, McGregor thought that it made absolutely no sense. McGregor was pushing for Kennedy to make the end of Vader victory. However, Kathleen Kennedy's defense and justification about that was that since Vader lost on Mustafar in Revenge of the Sith, it would only make sense for Kenobi to win this time around for the end of the series. Now, let me just stop right here for 1 second. Now, I don't know about you, but given that McGregor was an executive producer, I'm sure that a lot of fans are going to start pointing fingers saying, well, it's probably Ewan McGregor's fault about why the series came out the way that it did. And I don't think that we should be pointing out fingers at Ewan McGregor specifically at all, because there were multiple executive producers on this series, and they all only have so much power on what they can call the shots on, creatively speaking. So, basically, the ones that McGregor had the most creative power over were episodes 3, 5, and 6, except for the ending of 6. And I think that definitely tells us why 3, 5, and 6 were probably by far the best episodes. You know, I think that 3, 5, and 6 were the highlights of the Kenobi series. You know, in episode 3, you know, it really sets everything up. And episode 5 really kind of set everything also up with the whole Vader and Kenobi confrontation. Now, with that being said, however, alright, given that Kathleen Kennedy had so many creative differences with Ewan McGregor about Vader not being victorious and how she wanted Vader to lose in the ending of the Kenobi series, this is where things begin to really pick up for what's about to happen in Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2, and what is now being heavily discussed between Disney executives and, of course, Ewan McGregor, who is going to be returning as an executive producer. Now, specifically, of course, McGregor, even though he had creative control in some departments of the series, sadly did not have a say in the matter of how the series would come to a close. McGregor, however, now acting as executive producer again for Season 2 that is being planned, is debating on whether or not he would like to do one last duel with Vader. A rematch, if you will, is already being discussed that would then take place exactly 8 years before A New Hope, since Season 2 is planned to take place 2 years after the first season of Kenobi. McGregor wants to make sure that the fans are going to be happy with the turnout of Season 2, and with Kathleen Kennedy no longer involved, a rematch is now in deep talks over at Lucasfilm, and they intend to make Vader victorious this time around, since Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, even George Lucas, will have a big impact on the show moving ahead. Now, Kathleen Kennedy, as of right now, is said to be furious over these discussions between Lucasfilm creatives that are also and already preparing a Season 2 for Kenobi, and since Kennedy is now out, it's likely things will improve massively for the Kenobi TV series. Now, let me just stop right here for a second, because we obviously know that everything related to the Kenobi TV series is that they really want to make sure that they're going to do things correctly with Season 2. They want to make it an improvement. And anything that Kathleen Kennedy is attached to, let's face it, is always going to have problems. And since Kathleen Kennedy had no creative power over Mandalorian Season 2, look how great that turned out to be, right? I thought that is exactly why it turned out to be such a great show, and why we got the characters like Luke and all the other cameos in the series. Now, moving forward from all of this, too, we also know that everything related to Ewan McGregor is that he's very passionate about the fans. He wants to make sure that he and other creators coming on board is going to make, of course, everybody happy. Alright, so at the end of the day, we're still a ways out from a Season 2. We already talked about this yesterday, that Lucasfilm is aiming for the very end of 2024 during the holiday season. So we got quite a ways to go. You know, we do. 2.5 years, you know, it feels like a long time. So, like I say, I think that everything related to what they did with Vader being the one who loses, I did disagree with that. I didn't really like that all that much. I did like how we got to see Vader's mask being broken and getting that, you know, human side of Vader being unveiled, and you feel for the character more. But Kenobi just letting him live, I agree with McGregor that it just makes no sense at all. It never really did. Why would you let somebody live? Even Kenobi says in the beginning, this fight ends with either myself dying or him. So overall, guys, you know, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. No, I'm not the one from night to moon.